Hi, Joe Cerrone.
Al Rosen.
We're going to go through Chapter 3 from the textbook for Basic AutoCAD. Our learning objectives are to use appropriate values when responding to prompts, apply basic viewing methods, use the line command, go through point entry methods, drawing aids like grid and snap, erase, undo, U is also undo, redo, and oops. Create selection sets using various selection options. And so as we go through this, this is sort of the nuts and bolts of how to use CAD. AutoCAD prompts you to ask you for specific tasks. So for example, when you draw a line, you're going to want to read the command prompt, because in the command prompt, it will ask you for what it wants. And so if I alter back to our AutoCAD drawings, and then I go into model space, and if I decide to draw a line here, line, specify first point. So it asks you, where do you want to draw that? And I can click a point right here, and then it says specify the next point. And so it does provide feedback for you. You can tell it how long you want to make that line. If you're using the polar button, polar needs to be on and it needs to be tracking. So if I want this to be 5 inches, you can type 5 and enter.
Say, how do we know it's polar coordinates or tracking on? Because Joe will draw a line, and when he draws a line, at the end of the line, he has a dotted line added to it.
Correct. And if I put on O snap, I can grab the end of it and see this is that dotted line. And it goes every 15 degrees based on the settings in our polar settings. I use 15 degrees because it's like a drafting machine. I learned how to draw with a pencil. I was so bad at it, and I took the class out at Kishwaukee Community College, and have been doing CAD ever since. All right, switching back to the PowerPoint. So it will prompt you. If you're in a line command, it'll ask you for where you want to start the line. It'll ask you for endpoints. If you're in the circle command, it'll ask you for the radius. When you respond to numbers and we start to do architectural drawings, we want to be able to put the values in feet and inches. Because as we go through and we do the setup for the drawings, if you open the architectural title block, it's already set for you. But if you were to work from scratch, it doesn't work that well. And so if I go to an architectural drawing like this one, you'll notice that the dimensions are in feet and inches. So if I go back here to model space, and we do our drawings in model space, and I wanted to draw a line that's 10 feet long, I can say line and give it a starting point. And for some reason, I'm not in the line command. Let's see here. Outside of limits, they have the limits on it. So, all right, so we'll just draw a line from inside here. And I could draw this line 4 feet, but it has to be 4 apostrophe enter. And so that would be a 4-foot line. As designated and shown. If I want it to be 4 feet 3 inches, I could say line, and I could say from here, I can track it out this way, and I could say 4 feet 3, and then the inch mark. Now the inch mark doesn't need to be put in there, or that double quotes. The default is inches, and so if I just put 3, that would work also. But just from a standpoint of good habits, we'll go 4 feet 3. And then if I want to verify that, a couple of different ways. The fastest is to click on it and to make a grip hot, and it'll tell you right away. The other way would be to use a measure command, and you can measure a distance sometimes. There we go. From endpoint to endpoint, and it'll tell you the distance for that. And that's used quite a bit. So again, if you look at the units, when we go and set these up, the units need to be architectural for the architectural drawing, which will allow you to input your measurements in feet and inches, versus if it were in decimal, then it would be in decimal. So 12 decimal units would be 1 foot, but it would not round it to the 1 foot. All right. Canceling command, the best way is to just hit the escape key. I tell people press escape twice. You can hit it as many times as you want to cancel the command. Sometimes it's therapeutic. Here's our drawing. And when we start looking at point entry, what we're talking about is where the origin is, or where 0 is located on the CAD system. And so you'll see this user coordinate system that designates where 0 is. And then as we go through and we look at these coordinates, what we're doing is laying out the drawing according to the coordinates and their relation to the 0 origin. So as we start to work with creating drawings, that number 1 drawing is a good example of how to create different drawings with just coordinate input. And so you could say, give me a line from 0, 0, enter, next point 2, comma 1, enter, next point -2, comma 1. It's asking for the X, Y values. And so you want to give it the X, Y values it's asking for, and it will then allow you to put the coordinates in. Basic viewing commands, zoom, pan, these are done with the mouse. You can turn the wheel. There's a lot of different ways to zoom in and zoom out, but I think that's pretty basic. Here's our drawing lines command. And as we get through and look at how to draw lines, you'll notice that there's things like polar coordinate entry where they have an angle. So for example, if I wanted to draw a line 2 units long at a 45-degree angle, if we come back here in the model space and we just get a spot, and I'll say line from here, and if I want to do something 2 units long, let's get a little zoomed in so it's not so small. I'll say 2, shift less than symbol, 45, enter. And that is now a line with a length of 2 units at an angle of 45 degrees. And if I drew a horizontal line from that endpoint, you can see I've got a polar track. And then if I want to go through and I want to put a angular measurement on it, I can select angular and I can click these 2 lines. And that's the nice thing about CAD. It's very perfect as far as being able to create geometry. Switching back to PowerPoint. So we go through, and in that number 1 assignment, it demonstrates how to do absolute and polar coordinates or relative polar coordinates. And here is the example of it, 2-1. And so you say line, first point 4, 2, enter, next point 7, 2, enter. And then it would go and it would put these lines in at those points. On the number 1, the coordinates are on the exercise sheet 2-1. Grid, pretty self-explanatory. It's like a piece of graph paper. You can set that up with drafting settings. There it is. And you can go through snap and grid. You need to enable snap if you're going to use it. And grid gives you some perspective on things like size. How big is this room? If I have a 2 foot by 2 foot square grid on there, I can kind of just count ceiling tiles. Polar tracking. Polar tracking is also a very useful tool. I'm not sure why the tab is showing that one, but polar tracking allows us to track our lines at different angles. Ortho means orthogonal. It draws lines horizontal or vertical. So when ortho is on, lines are straight. Object snap. This is a really great OSNAP exercise. We can revisit this next time we make a video, but it allows you to create these different geometries, like drawing a line from the midpoint to the center point, drawing a line from the midpoint to a tangency point, or drawing a line tangent from a circle to tangent to another circle.
And there's a movie of it, a video of it on our splash page, please, if you need to.
The undo command just undoes the last drawing, the last line. Window selection, if it's a blue window, it selects everything inside of the window. And so you can see that this window blue, and the way that it works is you go from left to right to make it blue, and you go from right to left to make it green. Blue windows or window selections select everything within it, and green windows select everything it touches. And so if we tab over to our drawing, if I go erase, and then I click a blue window, this isn't going to erase anything because it doesn't, well, it'll erase the bottom line once I get it all the way there. Enter. Undo, erase, and then if I go from right to left, I don't have to touch everything in the window, I just have to touch it. It erases everything it touches. And so little things like that help you drive the CAD system very quickly and efficiently.
Also,
Last command, Al, go ahead.
you want to go back to AutoCAD for 1 minute, please?
Sure.
And erase that unit, please. The 2 lines in the measurement. Delete it. And Control Z, please, on the keyboard. That's another way to bring it back. It undoes it for the first time.
Yeah, I think there's all kinds of tips and tricks. It's a very fast program once you start to understand how it works. Review questions are optional. They're similar to the quiz questions. And so if you go through the chapter, you're allowed to take the quizzes more than once if you have a poor grade score. We want you to do well, and we use the review questions as a way to get you to understand what commands you're wanting to use or you should be knowing how to use. And so as we get into it, you know, when you enter a fractional number in CAD, why is a hyphen required? Well, you need to be able to separate whole numbers from fractional numbers. And so, you know, what is the Cartesian coordinate system? That's your X, Y, Z system. So it gives you a good foundation for the course. So that's our review of Module 3, Lecture Chapter 3, and our drawing objectives. I will end this recording and we'll post this on the main splash page.